I'm seeing a lot of analysis, which I kind of agree with, that Republicans have gone way too far. Their leader is a white supremacist who sat down with a white supremacist, which dominated the Thanksgiving news cycle, which is not a terrible thing. Actually, I'm glad that he's out there meeting with them. His own Israeli ambassador had to denounce him. I was like, that's a little bit too far. And other right-wing Israelis and Jewish Americans even. But they went too far with abortion and with other things and their conspiracy theories and all of that. And young people came out and like, no, this country, we do not want you people running this country. And though, as a result of the midterm elections, we're seeing maybe more or crazier types of violence.
We're going to see more of that because
gay nightclubs, racial attacks, religious attacks, synagogues, et cetera, being targeted.
Well, but I mean, the shooting at UVA, I mean, that was personal and problematic. Like, I don't think that had any larger political message.
Same with the one at Walmart.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like workplace violence, which is crazy and sick that in America we're sort of like, yeah, that was just workplace violence.
Well, yes, we're not.
I mean, like, shit. That's not comforting.
No, I thought about that, in that these are the most horrible ideas. The idea that you could be in a place that you could be shot randomly is terrifying for anybody, and it happens so often, not nearly as much as gun violence, specifically suicide and obviously homicide. But when it's a group that's targeted for, an immutable characteristic for their or religion, race, or or sexual orientation, that has hate behind it and terrorism, and it is different because those people are animated by a kind of political motive. I think they can be differentiated in terms of what kind of causes them and who should get guns, et cetera.
Well, they can be, but I think ultimately, and I said this last week, like the larger issue at play, and this goes with what happened in the midterms, right? The larger issue at play is like, I can say a lot of these things, they hit me very differently now as I've sort of evolved politically and personally. Because they're not abstract anymore. And I talk about like Mother Emanuel and how my friend Clem Pinkney was killed. And I known Clem for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the DC sniper, the DC sniper's last victim was at the gas station that my family used, like the gas you get right before we got on to 95. Like it was right there. It was across from, at that point, Howard Johnson's. A shooting at UVA, a terrorist attack at UVA. I know where all those places are. I am a UVA alumni. I was just on campus about 2 months ago, right? So these things no longer are random. They're not abstract. No, I've never been to El Paso, right? But I've been to Chesapeake and I've been to a Walmart. What we saw, I think, also in a lot of the voting this year is that people were pushing for those kinds of changes at the local level as well. Because your gun laws don't come from the feds as much as they come from your state.
Right.
Your state house and your state senate are the ones who are saying, in Georgia, whether or not you can walk into a damn, whether you can walk into church with a gun.
Well, right? that's where your court challenges also come from. But yeah, go ahead.
Right, exactly. So those sorts of things, I think a lot of young people, and think about it, like after not Sandy Hook, after Parkland in Florida, think of all the people who got activated after Parkland in Florida, but we didn't see that kind of sea change necessarily that we saw this year. So I'm not optimistic. I don't do that. But I'm definitely like, hey, Americans decided not to screw itself over. And as long as we've got voices out there, important voices that are highlighting these real issues that aren't being suppressed or abused or taken advantage of one way or another, and whether that's on Twitter or whether that's on air or whether that's on radio or whether that's on podcasts, I think the voice of what the American people actually want is going to keep getting pushed.